Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to explore those hidden forces, the currents beneath the surface that shape our lives, how we see things, even our gut feelings.
That's right.
And today we're diving into some really fascinating ideas from, from wisdom traditions about the human soul. The idea is that we have these 13 cool powers.
Things like existence itself, Haviah and Emuna, which is often translated as faith or belief, but also things like pleasure, will, wisdom, understanding.
Kindness, fear, compassion, victory, gratitude, honesty, humility. It's quite a list.
It really maps out the inner landscape.
Definitely. And for this deep dive, we want to zoom in on just two really foundational ones, Haviah, which we'll touch on, and especially Emuna.
Okay.
Because Emuna, it's one of those words you think, right? Faith. Maybe faith in God.
Right, that's the common understanding.
But the sources we're looking at suggest it's much broader. While belief in a creator might be its deepest root, Emuna here is presented as this inherent belief system. It's inside all of us.
Operating constantly.
Yeah, shaping how we interact, how we perceive everything. So our mission today is really to unpack that, to show you how understanding this power, this Emuna, can actually bring a lot of clarity, maybe even peace.
Especially in a world that feels pretty uncertain sometimes.
Exactly. Okay, so let's get into it. This idea that Emuna isn't just about the divine.
Right, it's more like an internal compass, a baseline belief system that everyone has.
Everyone, even someone who says, I don't believe in anything.
That's the point made by commentators like the Saba of Kelm. He argued that Emuna is intrinsic. You don't acquire it, it's just part of being human, a given.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? If it's operating unconsciously, how would we, see it? Can you give some everyday examples?
Sure. Think about a farmer. They plant a seed. Now, they don't know for an absolute fact that this specific seed will grow into a plant and bear fruit.
Right, things can go wrong. Blight, pests.
Exactly. But they plant it anyway. There's an underlying imuna, a belief in the natural order, in the process itself. It's a kind of trust.
Not necessarily in God, maybe, but in how things work.
Precisely. Or think about a newborn baby, completely helpless.
Yeah.
When a caregiver holds that baby, the baby instinctively trusts them. There's no logic there, no past experience to draw on.
It's just pure trust.
Pure pre-rational Emuna, a basic natural inclination to believe. It's fundamental.
That's a beautiful starting point. But, reality kicks in, doesn't it? Does that pure Emuna actually last? The source seems to suggest it gets damaged.
It does. As we grow up, that initial kind of 100% pure trust, the source calls it the upright state humans were created in, gets eroded by negative experiences.
Life happens.
Life happens. The classic example given is hiring a craftsman. You might initially trust them, maybe give an advance payment.
Okay.
But then maybe they don't show up, or they do a shoddy job. Your trust gets knocked.
You learn to be more careful.
Exactly. You learn, as the saying goes, to honor him, but suspect him. You become cautious.
So it's basically learning from disappointment. Our experiences teach us the world isn't always upright.
That's a good way to put it. If everyone stayed perfectly truthful and reliable, that primary Emuna wouldn't get damaged. But because reality often doesn't match that ideal, our innate trust gets, roughened up. Fought over.
We adapt. We develop a kind of necessary skepticism, but this erosion, it must impact more than just trusting people, right? What about just perceiving the world?
Now you're getting to a really deep point.
Like this chair I'm sitting on, do I know it's a chair or do I just believe it is? The source really pushes this, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Suggesting even our senses run on Emuna.
It does. It argues that what we perceive through our five senses, including sight, isn't absolute knowledge. It's fundamentally based on Emuna.
How so? Seeing feels pretty direct.
Well, think about illusions. The source gives ancient examples, Egyptian sorcerers appearing to turn water into blood, or staffs into snakes.
Right, things that looked real but weren't.
Exactly. Or the story of the death angel appearing at Moses' bedside, making people think he was dying, even though he wasn't yet. Our senses can be tricked. Magicians do it all the time, even today.
So, seeing is believing is maybe more literal than we think. We believe what we see, rather than knowing it absolutely.
That's the perspective here, because perception can be doubted, even slightly. It falls into the realm of Emuna, not absolute knowledge.
Okay, but wait. If everything we perceive externally is based on Emuna, on belief, is there anything we actually know for certain? Does this lead to total skepticism?
This is where the other power we mentioned, Haviah, comes in. Existence.
Great.
The one thing you know with absolute, undeniable certainty is your own existence. You can't logically doubt that you exist right now thinking these thoughts. That's Havaya.
So I am is knowledge. Everything else is Amuna.
Essentially, yes. Anything external, anything perceived through senses that could theoretically be deceiving you relies on Amuna. Havaya is that internal anchor, the bedrock certainty of your own being.
Got it. So Hevaya is the anchor. Amuna is how we navigate everything else.
Right. And understanding that distinction helps us deal with the inherent doubts of the external world.
Okay, that clarifies things. So if most of our interaction with the world runs on Amuna and life is full of doubts and choices, how does understanding Amuna help us, practically speaking, like with problem solving?
Well, think about where sadness often comes from. It's frequently rooted in uncertainty, in doubt. Should I do this or that? What if this happens?
Yeah, that resonates, the what ifs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the source quotes this powerful idea: there is no joy like the resolution of doubts. Amuna is the tool that lets us resolve a doubt, to settle on one side, even without absolute proof. And that resolution brings relief, even joy.
So choosing to believe something, settling the doubt, is itself a source of peace.
It can be. Imagine if you had total certainty about everything in life, every decision, every outcome. Problems would vanish, right? It would be constant joy, in a sense. Amuna is our way of creating pockets of certainty in a world that doesn't offer absolutes.
So we do this constantly without realizing it.
All the time. It's almost funny when you start noticing it. Think about your morning. You set an alarm clock. You believe it will ring. You believe the battery won't die. The power won't go out overnight. You sit on a chair. You believe it will hold your weight.
You don't test it every time.
Exactly. You trust your spouse, generally, without demanding constant proof of their intentions. You leave your house believing it won't be robbed while you're gone. We are swimming in unconscious acts of Amuna every single moment.
It's like the operating system of daily life.
It really is. And you see the contrast starkly in people who, sadly, struggle with severe mental health issues like extreme paranoia or phobias.
Right.
Their basic Amuna is broken. They can't trust the chair or the room or other people. They can barely function. It shows how essential this baseline trust, this Amuna, is for just living a healthy life.
Okay, so it's vital, and it's already within us. How do we, activate it more consciously? Strengthen it. The source says it's not about creating it from scratch.
Right, that's key. It's about identifying it, becoming aware of how often you're already using it.
Like noticing all those little acts of trust during the day.
Exactly. The analogy used is like having coins in your pocket but forgetting they're there and trying to borrow money. Or having flour in your cupboard but going next door to borrow some.
The resource is there, you just need to realize it and use it.
Precisely. Awareness is the first and maybe the most important step.
This connects to something else the source talks about that struggle many of us have, the mind-heart gap.
Ah, yes. The disconnect.
Where your logical mind knows something, but your gut, your heart, feels differently, like fear of flying.
That's the classic example. Your mind knows the statistics flying is incredibly safe. Safer than driving.
Rationally, yes.
But your heart is pounding anyway. The mind knows. The heart doubts or fears. Or think about locking your door when you leave for vacation. You lock it, you check it.
Maybe you check it again.
Right. Your mind knows it's locked, but your heart has this nagging doubt. The source says that gap between what the mind accepts and what the heart feels is where a huge amount of our suffering comes from.
Okay, so how do we bridge that gap? How do we get the mind and heart on the same page using Amuna?
The suggestion is to practice using Amuna consciously in those small everyday situations where your mind and heart already agree.
Like the chair.
Like the chair.
That's true.
Or the alarm clock. By actively noticing and maybe even verbalizing that belief, I believe this chair will hold me, I trust my alarm will ring, you're sort of training your heart.
You're building the muscle.
Exactly. You're building the capacity to apply that same conscious Amuna when you face bigger situations where the mind says yes, but the heart is hesitant. You're showing the heart, see, we can trust this process.
So it's about practicing with the small stuff to handle the bigger stuff. But it's important to distinguish, right? This works for baseless fears, the what-ifs.
Yes, absolutely crucial distinction.
It doesn't mean ignoring genuine problems. Like if a company you invested in has actual credible rumors of collapse, Amuna isn't about just blindly believing it'll be fine.
No, not at all. That's not a baseless doubt. That's potentially a reality you need to assess and deal with using other tools, reason, investigation. Amuna, in this context, is primarily for tackling those anxieties rooted in possibility, not probability or fact, the what-if scenarios that plague us.
And the source argues most suffering comes from those what ifs, not actual present problems.
That's a central point. We suffer more in imagination than in reality, often.
Okay, this brings us back to the two core powers, Hevaya and Amuna. It sounds like they represent two fundamental ways we perceive reality.
That's a great way to summarize it. Havaya is your internal perception grasping your own undeniable existence. Certainty, true nor.
And Amuna.
Emuna is how you perceive everything outside yourself. Things subject to doubt. Things where you need to choose to believe one side or the other to function.
And the ultimate goal, spiritually speaking, is what? For the external to become as certain as the internal. For Amuna to become Hevaya.
That's described as the ultimate transformation, yes. To perceive external reality with the same absolute certainty that you perceive your own existence.
Wow.
Within the framework of the source, the entire span of human history, thousands of years, is seen as a process moving towards that state where faith matures into direct knowledge.
That's a huge concept. But just to be clear, this isn't advocating for like being naive or foolish, right? Genuine Amuna isn't just blindly trusting everyone and everything.
Absolutely not. That's crucial. True Amuna isn't naivete. It's not ignoring potential problems, like trusting a shady shopkeeper without a second thought.
So what is it then?
Genuine Amuna is reached after acknowledging the doubts. After looking potential deception or uncertainty square in the face, considering all the reasons not to believe, and then making a conscious choice to affirm certainty anyway, it's a powerful act of will, not a passive state of ignorance.
It's belief despite doubt, not belief due to lack of doubt.
Beautifully put, yes.
Okay, so let's recap this deep dive. We've looked at Hevaya, that bedrock certainty of your own existence. Your I am. And Amuna, this incredible inherent power we all have to choose certainty, to bridge doubt, especially about the world outside ourselves. And critically, it's not just some lofty spiritual idea.
No, it's incredibly practical. It's the foundation of how you function day to day. Sitting, walking, trusting, planning.
It's all Amuna in action.
It really is. And we hope, listening to this, you start to notice it more. Reflect on all those tiny moments of trust you engage in constantly, unconsciously.
The chair, the alarm, the floor, the people you pass.
Yeah, because just recognizing it, identifying this power that's already yours, is the first step to activating it more consciously.
And the potential payoff, according to the source, is significant. Calming that mind-heart gap, resolving those nagging doubts, easing unnecessary suffering.
It really can shift your internal landscape.
So, here's a final thought to leave you with. If just noticing and starting to consciously use the Amuna you already possess can soothe so much daily anxiety, imagine what could happen if you really committed to cultivating it.
What deeper layers of certainty, not just about chairs and alarms, but about the world, about maybe your own path, could you begin to unlock? It's a profound question about a power you hold right now.